One of the things that we have learned over the last 20 years in video games is that we have done one thing really, really well. We've eliminated the pause button. And so people are having longer gaming sessions, they're playing for more specific times, and they can't get up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Architects, the InfoSum podcast that spotlights the leaders in the media industry. I'm your host, Ben Cicchetti, and this week we're getting into gaming with Nathan Lindberg, head of US brand partnerships at Overwolf. Nathan and I explore the world of in-game advertising, the different opportunities that exist, and how brands can turn up in a credible way. Before we jump into that conversation, this is a reminder to hit that subscribe button to be alerted when new episodes of Identity Architects are available. But without any further delay, here's my chat with Nathan. For anyone who has been following my LinkedIn for the last year, you'll know that I have become low-key obsessed with in-game advertising, which is why I'm thrilled today to be joined by Nathan Lindberg, head of US brand partnerships at Overwolf. Nathan, welcome to the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
As you know, I'm excited to dig into the world of in-game advertising, but so we can set context for everyone, can you just give us a quick introduction to yourself and Overwolf?
Absolutely. So I'm the head of US brand partnerships at Overwolf. I've been here for about 7-8 months now, so feel like a veteran at this point. And I started my career a long time ago, which I know we'll get into, but I've been in video game advertising for about the last 20 years. So really deep and rooted in this space and really excited to be a part of what Overwolf's doing. Obviously, we're a platform and destination that kind of helps gamers enjoy and monetize their passions for gaming. We'll talk a lot about that in terms of in-play advertising, beyond play advertising. But really kind of helping to be the next level and innovation, I think we both think, is a great place for brands to kind of jump into in this space, especially around the idea of in-game advertising.
For sure. I mean, we've got loads to get into. I think it's going to be a really exciting podcast. I'm personally super excited for this podcast. But we'll start the way we always do, which is with our quick fire questions, but with a slightly different flavor to start. Usually, we would ask people what's their earliest memory of advertising. But in this case, I'd love to know your earliest memory of gaming.
Absolutely. It was a great day in Christmas of 1989 when I got my first Nintendo Entertainment System. Big moment for me, big day. Santa Claus came in clutch. Not only that, but I got this epic, legendary, it was a one-of-a-kind thing that they did, but it was a Super Mario Brother Duck Hunt combo cartridge, and it came with the original little zap gun thing. Man, I played that zap gun until it broke, and then I fixed it, and then it broke again. But that was it for me. Once I got my hands on that Nintendo Entertainment System, as they like to say, the rest is history.
I love that. So if you take yourself back to those days, getting that Nintendo for the first time, what did you want to be when you were younger?
Oh, I mean, it's funny because I grew up as a sports fiend and a gaming fiend, and I never saw those things as different. I mean, obviously, I saw movies like Revenge of the Nerds and stuff like that, which told me that jocks and gamers don't get along. But I loved playing video games ever since I got my first Nintendo Entertainment System, and I loved playing sports. So for me, this won't come as a surprise because I know you've seen a couple of my podcasts. I really wanted to be a sports anchor. I wanted to be a television personality. I wanted to be the guy that has the cool catchphrase that everybody says and everybody's excited about. That didn't materialize. I learned very quickly when I graduated college that that is a low start load on the totem pole, and you got to work your way up. You don't get to go right to Sports Center. And so I unfortunately found a different direction, which was advertising, but still had that opportunity to have my presentation styles or ability to be on camera at times, which I love.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your first job in advertising and marketing then?
It was an incredibly luxurious position. I was working as an hourly assistant media planner at a company called Dreamus in San Francisco. I had graduated college. I was really excited to go out into the world. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, got a job with The Gap. We moved out to San Francisco with knowing no one, knowing nothing, and I was sitting there working at an agency. My job was to tag the pages where our ads ran so that we could ship it to the client so that they could see that their ad ran. This was like Taiwan Semiconductors. These are some Hypotherm. These are some really sexy accounts that I got to work on and make $8 an hour doing. But it led me into this space and it got me really interested. And that's what led me to my second job, which was actually at the Universal McCann as an official media planner, working on Microsoft full time, which was amazing. And it really kind of got me into the nuts and bolts of advertising. It really taught me a lot of how a media plan works, how to target an audience, how to figure out the right mechanics and stuff like that, the right media mix, and all those things were instrumental in the rest of my career.
Yeah, I think understanding those nuts and bolts, as you put it, is so important as you grow. Because whilst you may not need to understand the nuts and bolts as you kind of grow in your career, having that depth, that kind of foundation knowledge is so incredibly important. What do you think it is that drew you in to the advertising industry? And then I guess more importantly, what keeps you in it to this very day?
Well, I was before Don Draper made it popular, so I won't say it was the happy hours, but it's definitely for me, it's innovation, and particularly with video games, that is really is helpful to me. It also keeps me young. I'm very popular with my nieces and nephews, and I think that that's a really important place to be. It gives my daughter some cred when she's in school specifically,
Yeah.
but I think for both, for me, it's really about the quest for innovation. It's about doing things more important. It's about providing more value to the community. It's about building ecosystems. And what really attracted me to Overwolf is the fact that we're actually creating new careers for people by the advertising that we bring in. That really supports people's ability to monetize their passion in a way that was not feasible 5 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, keeping that content creator economy alive is just so important. And people have this passion for creating content, creating gaming assets is just incredibly important. So yeah, I think that work is essential. What advice would you give to someone that is maybe just starting in their career in media and advertising or even gaming?
Yeah, this will be a little counterintuitive to the media planners, but don't pre-plan your career. Oftentimes I talk to folks who are like, I'm going to be this for this while and this for this and this for this. I'm going to go work at this company, then this company. Let me tell you guys, just to be brutally honest, 23-year-old Nathan Lindberg did not have any idea what 40-year-old Nathan Lindberg would be doing. And that's okay. That's a good thing. Like often people are very concerned about the ability of saying, oh man, like if I'm not, if I'm not a media planner by my second year, then I failed. Or if I'm not a VP by this date, then I failed. Like you have no idea what the world has in store for you. And if you keep working hard and you keep trying, learning and keep being curious, like there's just so much opportunity. And I think folks very much get fixated on titles and roles and companies, and it prevents you from actually having the great success that you're due by not listening and not trusting your gut on these things.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, enjoy the journey is something I say to people a lot, which is, your career should be fun and it should be a journey. And if you can enjoy that, embrace change, embrace a little bit of chaos at times, you will find success in that chaos often. So I think that's great advice. A two-part question. What keeps you awake at night? And then what gets you up in the morning and motivated?
Yeah, this is suddenly something that is especially as a head of sales, you have a lot of things that do both. I think that for me right now, we've had some great success. We've hired some incredible people. We're having some great partnerships. Balancing for me the number of sellers I have with the number of account managers is something that really keeps me up at night. Making sure that not only are we selling in great deals, but we're actually having legendary customer service to make sure that our clients come back. That keeps me up consistently, which is a really good problem to have. On the flip side, I am incredibly biased, but I come from a history. My connections with Overwolf go very deep back to my days of Curse. That's why you can see a little bit in the background the orange room that I'm in. Those were from my Curse days. I just think there's such an incredible opportunity, a genuine value proposition that gets me out of bed to tell that story. There are people out there, and listen, I was incredibly successful spending 7 years at Twitch, convincing a lot of people that people watch other people play video games. And now I'm back to tell them that actually there is a cohort of people who just like to play video games. And they're a great group to talk to as well. And so just for me, as a gamer, as someone who really enjoys the space, as someone who's had the chance to connect with the people whose advertising we have the largest impact on, I just love getting up and telling that story every single day.
Yeah, I love that. When you can wake up excited about the story you get to tell. I'm a marketer, so it's all about storytelling for me.
Yeah.
When you're excited to get up and tell those stories, that's a magic combination to have. How would you describe what you do within media and advertising to a 10-year-old? I think you have upper hand here because nearly every 10-year-old is playing games these days. So, how would you describe what you do?
I do, and I have a 10-year-old at home, so I'm very
There you go.
lucky to have that. I usually think of the way that she does it. It's funny because for me, 10-year-olds and my mother and my father oftentimes struggle with it too. And so I remember working at Twitch and Amazon, and for a long time, my mom just told people that I packed and shipped boxes because I worked at Amazon, and I was like, it's not exactly it, but that's fine. We'll go with that. What I try to tell, especially for 10-year-olds, you like those branded in-game items? in Fortnite and Roblox, Minecraft. Yeah, that's me. I do that cool stuff. I bring it in there. A lot of times for them, it's about the value proposition of advertising. It's about the ability for advertising to provide goods, services, exclusives, fun experiences. And so for me, it's like, hey, you know those fun quests you get to do, you know those extra things you get to put on, you get that extra hoodie, you get that extra item. Yeah, that's kind of like what I do. And for me, that's the necessary need. Obviously, you know, Super Bowl has just gone on, and so we're in that situation where everyone's been exposed to big advertising. But I think that when you look at the audience of 10-year-olds in particular, they're much more concerned with what cool stuff just popped up in their favorite Roblox experience. And yeah, that's what I'm here to help do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool job to be able to say and to be able to describe it that way. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's taken time to distill it down.
Yeah,
There's a much more complicated answer to that. But when you're talking to a 10-year-old, you got about what 2.5 seconds of attention, so you really got to keep it short.
100%. The final of our quickfire question, personal favorite of mine. If there was a song that was a soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
Yeah, this is fun for me. I mean, I grew up as a country music fan, and a big yacht rock fan. So I was trying to think about this in a lot of different ways. But then when I really keened in on your question of like the soundtrack to your life, I went in a very different direction, actually. And I got a lot of looks from my staff members, but I went with Levels by Avicii. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
why. Two big reasons, right? For me, my life has been fast paced and upbeat. I live my life pretty positively. I'm pretty energetic. I'm pretty excited. You're already probably getting this a little bit from our conversation already. Um, but the other thing for me is I just get a good feeling about things. And I've lived a lot of my life and career just based on, hey, if I've got a good feeling, if there's an opportunity, I think that's out there for me, I'm going for it. And I'm doing it and I'm following it back up. And so for me, from a literal sense, I felt that song really kind of describes a lot of my life, my times, and kind of the way in which I go about my day.
I love that. That's a great answer. And we have
So
a
my little
playlist.
EDM.
Yeah, exactly. No, we've got a playlist on Spotify where we add all everyone's choices. So we'll add that to the playlist and everyone can enjoy that. That's a really great song. I love that song.
Excellent.
As I mentioned, I'm a lifelong gamer and I'm incredibly excited and intrigued by the in-game advertising space. And my perception is that it's still a slightly underutilized channel. I feel like the potential is there and more brands are embracing it, but I still think there's so much more that can be done. So as our first guest from the gaming space, can you explain what you call in-play advertising for someone new to gaming and what makes that different from traditional kind of in-game ads?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So just to start back, obviously, I have the luxury and dubious honor of going first. So I want to make sure that I give the audience a really great understanding. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, going to Twitch and spending time there and teaching people that people watch other people play video games and people play video games. There's two major cohorts that exist in this space. And they're not mutually exclusive, but they tend to run in different circles just because despite all the innovation we've had in this world, there's still only 24 hours in a day. So either you're playing or you're watching. It's really hard to do both. But if you think about sports, you think about music, you would say like a music fan or a sports fan is someone that could either watch sports, right, or play them. And it's very easy to monetize sports from a viewership perspective, right? You've got the Super Bowl that we watched recently. Like it's very easy to monetize people who are watching sports for entertainment. The question is, how do you, like, if someone is a football fan, right, they can go to the Super Bowl, or they could be playing in their backyard with their friends or their child, right? How do you as a brand show up in those experiences? How do you have that connection with that audience? And the answer for gaming has been basically nothing, right? Sometimes you can like stack a logo in there or something like that. You can put something non-traditional. You can't track it. You can't really optimize it. It looks and sounds good, but is it good? It's not. And that's where I think Overwolf has done an amazing job of figuring out with in-play advertising and being able to put traditional standard IAB media, third-party tracked, into an environment where someone is in the middle of a gaming experience. And that, I think, is really what helps, the why and the value, why it's different. It's IAB standard, right? So you don't have to go through and create something specific. I hear horror stories of 20-week dev cycles because you have to like recreate the map and redo your advertising. And then you're not really sure how many impressions did you get. All of those things play into a really important part of why in-play advertising works. As well, when you think about how Overwolf users are using the apps, they're playing the game. They might be the level 99 best esports player in the world, and they just want a little extra help. Or they might be like yours truly, who is just trying not to get yelled at by his 20-year-old teammates, right? For not knowing, oh, that extra thing that just got updated. Oh, you don't know about that? What's wrong with you, right? And so for us, you have people that are using these apps and services constantly throughout their gaming experience, and it's a free experience. And so by powering that and having that app, that kind of activation in the broadcast itself, kind of overlaid in a way that allows me to pull it in and put it back, it creates a really kind of credible, safe environment for advertising to show up in a way that advertisers are comfortable spending. And so I think when we think about traditional in-game advertising, it's really about like almost like a billboard, right? Like just
Mm.
slapping logos in places and stuff like that. This is actually having advertising play a role in providing tools and services for gamers that they want, but then supporting not only them and giving them a free experience, but the creators themselves are monetizing that as well at a really high clip. And so I think it creates a really nice kind of symbiotic relationship across the industry.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the audience size is just phenomenal, right? When we think about it, and it's every generation. Like I think about in my own family, my mum plays games on her phone down to, my youngest niece plays games. So it's a generational thing, and the audience is just phenomenal. So the more you can tap into that and reach that audience, if you're an advertiser, that ability to reach that audience is incredible. When you think specifically about the role of Overwolf, what role does it play in the gaming ecosystem?
Yeah, and I think part of that is a big piece of rewarding users and celebrating those moments, right? Like when we talked about just before, right? When you're playing in your backyard and your son or daughter throws a spiral for the first time, like how do you as a brand get in there and be like, that's awesome, way to go? But then how do you do it at scale, right? It's great to do it once, but you want to do it a million times with a million users. That's where Overwolf is kind of helping to play in this space and really help to provide value and really thought leadership in terms of how to market to those folks in those spaces. So we have an ecosystem, whether it's in game or out of game, supporting over 1,500 games. We have 187,000 creators who are creating products and services. They are the creators of the future. We might call them developers, you might call them creators, you might call them influencers. The world is changing, right? We're seeing people going from live journals and writing live journals to posting VOD content to streaming live content to now creating immersive worlds and experiences. And that's where Overwolf is really trying to be a leader in this space, right? We're trying to help you. If you have a passion for helping other people enjoy the video game space, we want you to monetize that. So whether it's apps in the game, whether it's websites, whether it's mods and add-ons for the gaming community, or whether it's payment transactions and for private servers and stuff like that, we want your business to be about making the best products and services for your fellow gamers. We'll help you with the monetization side. We'll help you bring the brands in. We'll help make that stuff work. And we've paid out over $240 million in the last year to creators in this space as a byproduct of that, right? And so it really is about being in the ecosystem. It's about being credible. It's about being a brand and a partner to help them do the things that they need to do, but also being that shepherd for brands to say, hey, I've got easy transactional ways for you to come in and support this community in a way that's going to help tremendously innovate and provide value to people who are spending their free time building these things in these part-time careers and turning them into hopefully full-time careers.
Yeah, for sure. And you've personally been at kind of the forefront of gaming and advertising for around 2 decades, you mentioned. Where do you think the in-game advertising industry is today? And how do you and Overwolf hope to kind of plan and shape the next phase of growth for the ecosystem?
That was a really polite way for you saying that I'm old. And I appreciate that. Listen, I think that in-game advertising becomes more and more attractive as people's session depth goes up. One of the things that we have learned over the last 20 years in video games is that we have done one thing really, really well. We've eliminated the pause button. And so people are having longer gaming sessions. They're playing for more specific times and they can't get up. If you're playing really popular games like League of Legends or Call of Duty or Valorant, Rocket League, your matches are 20, 30, 60 minutes. And you can't just like stop and go to the bathroom. You can't just go, hey, hang a pause. I need to double check what this information is. You're in those experiences and therefore you're not advertised to anywhere else. And if you're spending 5 hours a gaming session, 7 hours a gaming session, it's again, only 24 hours in a day. So all the rest of those other areas for media consumption, you're not there.
Yeah.
And so if you look at and you compare the audience that we're seeing, there is a huge opportunity to reach people who I don't want to call them unreachable, but they're much more difficult to reach because they are in these environments and they're dedicated and passionate about these environments. So I think when you look at in-game advertising, the allure of it is there, right? People play it a lot. People are spending a lot of time in it. There's huge amounts of enthusiasm and emotion that goes into it. How do you show up in the right places in the right way? And so as we think about where this is going and where the transitions are happening, the easy one that's happening right now is you're seeing the opportunity for licensed IP to show up in environments. And that has been a very easy and kind of natural way to see it. You're seeing it with Fortnite and obviously all the integrations that they're having there, Roblox experiences, all the IP is going into there. But we're starting to see more and more opportunities for brands to say, hey, it's not just about being in Roblox or Fortnite. It's about being across the ecosystem. And if I have these great assets, how can they show up in a bunch of different games? How can I leverage that across the space? And the answer is that platforms like Overwolf can help specifically with being able to connect you across multiple games simultaneously with our CurseForge for Studios product and service. And that is where I think a lot of brands and advertisers are kind of going, oh, okay, this is really interesting. It's not just about getting my IAB standard ads, but maybe it's about buying those in the comfortable way in which I do it, and then getting these really, really integrated opportunities as an added value part of this deal. I really like that. And I really like that opportunity. And the community loves it as well because it not only has the standard advertising, more importantly, it gives them that really cool integration that they're seeing across the board.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's super important is authenticity. I think it was last week, I saw the launch of a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers mod, which as someone who grew up in the 90s, I was incredibly excited by that. But it's really important, obviously, for brands to show up, as you said, in the right way and in an authentic way. So for people who are new to gaming, what advice would you give to brands to build authentic connections with those players?
I will say this is one of the words that I hate using, and I'll tell you why. I feel like it's very overused, and I feel like it's easy to self-serve, right? Oh, I'm super authentic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, fine. I like to use the word credible. So on this
Yeah.
podcast, we're going to change the conversation. We're going to use the C word, not the A word. We're talking about credibility, right? Because
Love it.
credibility is something that someone has to bestow on you, not the other way around. You can't call yourself, well, you can try to call yourself credible. It doesn't have the same effect. But it's actually super important for brands. It's really, really valuable to come into the space and say, okay, how do I build credibility with this audience? It starts by understanding them, right? So insights, information, working with gaming specific agency partners, right? Working with folks in the space that can educate you. If someone can't educate you on why you should do something, you 100% should not do it, right? If you go to a car dealership and you walk in and you say, I need a new car. And their response is, you definitely need that new EV Mustang. You know that.
Yeah.
How do you have any idea that that's what I need? I probably need something entirely different. Understanding and
I drive
explanation.
the EV Mustang, so I don't know how you pulled that out because that was incredible.
It's a beautiful car. It's a beautiful
It is.
car.
Yeah. Yeah. They were
And
right for
again,
me.
I got that vibe. We've talked before, so I had that idea. But oftentimes when you roll, when you talk to folks, it's like, oh, great. Like, let me tell you what my solution is and why my solution is your solution.
Yeah.
It has to be a data-driven conversation. So understanding who your target audience is. If they're 18 to 34-year-olds, they are likely playing video games and they're enjoying that experience. So how do you show up and participate in that experience without interrupting it or causing a problem with it? So once you do that, then it becomes a conversation of, well, what are your brand USPs? What are you trying to get across, right? If you're a quick service restaurant or you're a consumer packaged good or you're an automotive brand, you have different USPs for what you're trying to do and how you're trying to explain yourself to this audience. So making sure that your USPs come through in the conversation is really, really important. And then at the end, provide some value, right? At the end of the day, we are in a value exchange. I'm going to pay attention to your brand. You're going to try to get me to buy your product, right? What is the value here? How are we transacting? And in a creator economy, the way in which we're sharing value is by supporting the medium. We're supporting the creators who are building the content, the service, whatever it is that we both feel is really valuable. And so I think this is a great place for brands to go, okay, great. I want to be a part of this experience. I know that the audience on Overwolf is not on Twitch. And so I need to make sure that I think about the way in which I interact with them vastly different than the audience, the way I interact with people on Twitch. Both platforms, wonderful places to advertise to gamers, just very different thought processes. And when you think about how you activate on those platforms, on Overwolf, we really focus on activation and engagement. So getting people to participate, put their hands on the keyboard, get their hands on the controller, get in there and participate, because that's what our users want to do. It's how they want to do it. Doesn't mean you can't do an influencer program, just not really our focus in terms of what we do. There's a bunch of great creators on Twitch and on YouTube and on these platforms, great places for them to advertise. But for a brand coming into our place, we're going to talk to you about engagement, about building, about playing, about competing. That's what gets our audience excited. That's what gets them to share their time and focus with you as a brand.
Yeah, and you touched on something there, which I think is really important as I've kind of dug into the in-game advertising space, which is around disruption and making sure these experiences aren't disruptive to the gaming experience. As a gamer, that's kind of your worst nightmare. And I think also gamers maybe take trust more seriously than any other kind of audience, and building that trust with Overwolf, with the gaming publishers and so on and so forth. How does Overwolf prioritize gamers' needs while ensuring that privacy and security that really is so vital in the advertising ecosystem of 2025?
Yeah, well, listen, I would say first and foremost, that is probably priority number one in our world in terms of data and stuff like that. That's what really inspired me when I joined Overwolf, is that there is a lot of focus and feedback around data safety, privacy, where we take that stuff very seriously, because gamers do more than most. But we've seen what happens when that trust is lost. Like, I came from Epic Games. Epic Games puts a strong effort on, user privacy and stuff like that because of how valuable it is. Same with Twitch. All of these platforms understand that you have a very highly technical, highly intelligent audience of people who take their privacy and their stuff very seriously. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not willing to share it. And there are ways for us to do that in safe and effective ways. We leverage a lot of technology around with third parties. So whether that's, ad serving partners, whether that's brand safety and moderation tools, we use a lot of different products and tools to make sure that we are taking that into account as a priority. Because not only is it important that their time and the value exchange with advertising feels fair and safe, but I remember the days, this is going back to my ancient days when I was at Curse, and one of the things we used to deal with a lot was people used to make jokes about it, but when jokes become too prevalent, it becomes something you have to deal with. I'm like, oh, that's like Curse app. Like, those guys are using your computer to farm gold and do all these nefarious things on there. It couldn't be further from the truth, but that's the level of importance that it takes in terms of addressing and being a part of, a quality space. And so if you don't have those services and those products and stuff like that in play and visible to the community, to your point, yeah, it creates a tremendous amount of struggle in terms of people being willing to download our app, being willing to use our products and services. And I'm really happy to say that our Overwolf app has over 45 million monthly users, which tells us that there has been trust and safety built over the years, and that a number of people, not just in the US, but worldwide, love the service that we give, love the opportunities, and appreciate how we treat them as customers.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned a little bit earlier that in 2024, Overwolf earned creators over $240 million, which is obviously an incredible number and so important to supporting that creator economy, as we touched on. How has the platform evolved to support them and attract global brands, which I'm guessing is kind of one of your roles at Overwolf, is attracting those global brands? And what strategies are creators adopting to monetize while balancing that kind of brand expectation with the credibility that we talked about?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that, it's always great to send big checks to people, right? And what always, to me, is the feel good moment is when you read about stories, or you get to go to events and you get to meet people who, became a creator on Overwolf and just, quit their job because now they can go full time. Or in the case of Professor, selling their company for tens of millions of euros and being able to buy your parents their house, and all these great, feel good moments. And for me, coming from Twitch, I had that often where I could celebrate someone's success. I could work with them and say, hey, you did it, and we brought in the brands and we made it work, and now you're living your dream. That is the best feeling. And that is something that we actually have a Slack channel for at Overwolf. We have a Celebrate Success Slack channel that talks about the successes that we're creating for other people, not
I
just
love
for our
that.
platform, but
Yeah.
for other people, for the millions of people that are using our platform and the hundreds of thousands of creators that are using our platform. We're helping them create careers of the future, which is super, super satisfying. Now, for us, there's a couple of ways we help with brands, right? The first one is standardization. So when we created the Overwolf app, the SDK system, it has spots in it where IAB standard advertising goes. You, as a creator, have the flexibility to decide, do you want an MPU? Do you want a skyscraper? Do you want a super leaderboard? Like, you have the ability to decide where the advertising goes. But outside of that, we put advertising in there, right? It's a free service. We've got to monetize. You want to monetize. So we give kind of creative kind of suggestions to users and how they do it. And listen, every app is different. Every app has different functionality. So it's up to the creator to decide where advertising fits in the best. But on like a significantly high number of these apps, only one ad is in the app. And so from a uncluttered environment, it's great for advertisers, it's great for brands. And when I show brands the look and feel, they get very excited because like, wow, that's nice. With websites, it's the same thing. We work with them on best-in-class websites. We pay them faster. We pay them faster than Google does. Net 7, which is really valuable and helpful in terms of helping them to grow and also to work with them on, hey, these are the best trends that we're seeing in the world of advertising. So really helping to help them level up their monetization, to reorganize their page layouts, to monetize and maximize their value while still keeping users really well engaged. And so those are some of the big things that we do. And especially when you talk about, platforms like TEBx, which don't have a tremendous amount of impact on the brand partnership side, but certainly from a user engagement perspective and give us access to creators in the world of Grand Theft Auto and Minecraft and RuneScape. You're seeing those services and those products paying users faster, making it easier, like speeding up transactions so that our creators can get the money that they deserve, that they've earned, faster and quicker. And the faster and quicker they get paid, the faster and quicker that they can invest it again and rebook, and then we can build and build and build. And so a lot of those things for us are like how we help those creators monetize, but then we use that aggregate to go to a brand and say, hey, you really want to talk to this audience. You want to be a brand that has purpose, that has impact. There is nothing more impactful than changing someone's career from part-time hobbyist to full-time creator. That is so powerful. It worked at YouTube. It works at Twitch. It certainly works now here at Overwolf as well.
I love that. And as a brand purpose, there's not a better brand purpose I can think of, which is kind of changing people's lives, right? And letting them kind of embrace their passion and do that. And you've mentioned a couple of times something which I'm super passionate about, which is that value exchange. That in advertising, no matter what advertising it is, whether it's CTV, audio, gaming, so on and so forth, there's such an important value exchange that happens between the consumer and the brand and all the media owners monetizing that audience. And I think we're increasingly seeing gamers appreciate that value exchange, which I don't think was there before. I think, if you went back maybe 10, 15 years, the idea of ads in games, gamers were really averse to it. They hated the idea. They imagined, I always talk about that Ready Player One scene where they talk about how much of the screen time they can monetize, right? And that's what kind of people thought in-game advertising would look like. But obviously that's not the case. How is or does Overwolf communicate the value to both the brand and the player that exists in that value exchange?
Yeah, listen, it is always the easiest way to become the evil empire and have like 47 ads on the screen and all of that kind of concern and craziness when it comes to over monetization, right? And I think that when you think about it and you sit down and you say, listen, if I don't have eyeballs, I don't have a product to monetize. And so it's really important to understand, how do I maximize both? How do I give people a valuable experience while at the same time allowing them to be a part of or have a service and stuff like that for free and monetize that on another way? I think that living in the creator economy world that we live in, there is a very strong case study and a very strong case to be made of the rev share matters. You see that a lot on conversations on other platforms like Twitch and YouTube. There is a very strong conversation about how much a creator makes off of the dollars and cents that are generated. That's a very, that's not only an important conversation for the creator, it's an important conversation for their community. And so for Overwolf to be able to pay out at least 50% to creators of the ad revenue and the monetization there, that's a really great conversation. And there is no better feeling for us than someone going, holy cow, like I just checked my bank statement and this is amazing, right? No better feeling for us. And so it's about saying to them, hey, listen, we want to make sure that you have a great experience. So we have our SDK set up. Give us feedback. We have open Discord channels. We have open Slack feedback channels. We encourage conversation with our audiences, and we want to make sure that people are feeling like they're balancing both. When it comes to brands and how brands understand it, this is an incredibly complicated conversation, right? If you're not a gamer, the idea of understanding an app that's helping you game while you game, that's like 3 levels of inception, right? Like there's a lot to it. And I think what's exciting about that is that we have the most creative team in the business. Our marketing group, our creative strategy team, they go above and beyond, and they understand. We empathize that advertisers are not authorities on gaming. The decks that we build, the videos that we create, the tutorials and walkthroughs, those are there to help advertisers along the journey. And it's really valuable. And I had many advertisers come back to me and say, I have never seen a company walk me through the process like you all do. And my response is like, we should. It's complicated. It's confusing, but it's valuable and it's beneficial. And so by leveraging, my favorite video that we did recently was we actually worked with a creator named Darksword. And Darksword plays a number of different games, really great creator, very articulate. And he did a walkthrough of how people use Overwolf apps when they're gaming. 3 minutes long, not the, again, a long for content, but for advertisers, it was like, wow, this is a creator talking about it. He explains, hey, this is how I use it while I'm in game. Oh, look, the advertising's right there. That's pretty sweet because I know that my favorite app creator just made a bunch of, just made money off of me. On top of that, I'm giving this advertiser is a part of the community, which I think is great because I'm not paying anything for the service. That's awesome for me. And so it's really about empathizing with both sides and giving them the explanation and the value proposition and saying, hey, we're going to put this here to allow this so that your system and solution can be successful. And as long as we don't burn the trust of either side, I think we've got a really great balance of community engagement and support for creators, along with a value proposition that advertisers find incredibly useful and effective.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from an advertising perspective as well, we kind of touched on it, but every generation is gaming, right? Every generation is playing some level of gaming now. In particular, obviously, Gen Z, which is the most sought after generation right now. And when kind of doing research for this and researching into the in-game advertising space, one of the things that kind of stood out to me is that Generation Z values community-driven platforms and kind of the credibility that we talked about. How does Overwolf approach advertising to align with those values that we know that generation has? And I would, of course, love any examples of how brands are doing that well right now.
Yeah, I think that, it's so exciting to see people kind of change their mindset of advertising of like a necessary evil to actually a support main, right? It's a really valuable asset in saying, hey, I'm good with advertising. I'm excited about good advertising. And for us, that just becomes a daily challenge of how we bring those things together, right? And, when we tell the stories of creators who are making more money, right, who are able to go full time. Again, I'm not talking about millionaires and billionaires. I'm talking about people that just don't have to go to a 9-to-5 anymore. Like the community loves that. They feel very strongly about those opportunities and that value. And for us, that's a really big part of how we talk about this and how we explain these things. If you look at our most recent announcement, you mentioned, the Hasbro Power Rangers V2, which has got my personal favorite. Again, I'm a big Green Ranger fan, and when the Dragon Zord comes out of the water, I'm like, whoa, awesome. Nostalgia moments. But that was created by a third-party developer using CurseForge for Studios, and so for that individual to have that opportunity to work on these projects and be a part of something that they probably have some strong nostalgia to as well, right? Like that's the exciting part of this whole story is we're giving people the opportunity to live their dreams, to have those opportunities come to life. And they're the most passionate people you'll ever meet. And so the effort is there, the outcome is there, everything's really positive. And when the audience sees that, when they see that these are not a corporate behemoth going and building this thing, instead it's like, hey, this person made this, or this small studio made this. These creators help bring this to life. That's what our audience gets excited about. And so if you look at everything we do, the way we communicate, the way we tell the stories, the way we highlight, Overwolf oftentimes does not take primary credit for anything, because for us, we're just the platform making it happen. And so for us to take that personal credit feels a little bit entitled. And so really it becomes, how do you elevate and escalate the people that actually made the product and service? And how do you show that, yes, they used Overwolf's products, tools, and solutions to help make it a better, to make that thing come to life. But it's really about celebrating those individuals and letting Gen Z celebrate those individuals. And it's something that I've noticed in particular with any platform that generates value for Gen Z is oftentimes when an advertising partnership happens, when a branding thing happens, their response is, we did it, which is a fascinating thing to see. And that there is actually this kind of communal excitement of like, because we all got together, because we all made this thing, we've actually now unlocked advertising, and this advertiser is now here because of that. And we feel great about that. I love it. I think it's the absolute best way for the community and the brand to get together and to share that enthusiasm for, hey, we're building something great together.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the Hasbro Power Rangers mod and collaboration, which I thought was awesome. What are some of your other favorite collaborations that you've seen at Overwolf? And what do you think, if you kind of drill it down into detail, what made them successful?
Yeah, well, we've had a number of them recently, and our team is definitely out and about and really getting after it. For me, a couple of them that really stand out, a couple of my real favorite ones, just because of the way we did it. I think that oftentimes when brands come to us, they get very defensive of like, ooh, I don't want to like step on people's toes. I don't want to be too cheeky. I want to be like just rah, rah, good, right? And when we worked with the folks at Universal Pictures a couple years ago, we actually worked on a movie called Five Nights at Freddy's, which is a scary movie where, it's a survival thriller. And we actually did a campaign where if you were playing certain video games and you died, during your death timer, that creepy bear would kind of slide into the screen and be like, could you survive Five Nights at Freddy's? Right? And go back. And the idea was almost to like, play a little poke fun at like, hey, you died. Like, it's okay, it happens. But like playing off that narrative was really fascinating for them. And I thought that was a nice way to like cheekily kind of say, oh, hey, you died, but that's okay. Additionally, we actually did something really innovative this past summer with the folks at Kellanova and Pringles, where we actually used session depth targeting. So we actually waited until someone had played for at least 90 minutes and then came back to them and said, hey, might be time for a Pringle snack break, right? And actually hit them with messaging during a specific duration time frame, as opposed to just, random stuff here and there, right?
Yeah.
Because that advertising not only really resonated, but it was like, hey, I understand that you've been playing for a while. And I know that because I'm a brand and like I'm a gamer too. And we know that it's oftentimes a good idea to like after a game or two, right? Grab some water, grab some chips, like you might need a little snack, right? And though that was a really interesting campaign because users felt like, oh, wow, like you get me. Amazing. Yeah. Like really credible, really valuable from that perspective. So a couple of those that I thought were really, really well done and really tied in very nicely. One of the ones that we're working on right now is with we just launched it last week. It's with our friends at Conagra and Slim Jim, and we're bringing in and actually doing a rewarded challenge, right? So it's like, I remember the old days, snap into those Slim Jims, Macho Man. Like I remember those great days. Well, we're bringing a lot of that fun and a lot of that enthusiasm back to the world of advertising and doing a Slim Jim rewarded challenge that you're getting in, you're playing your favorite games, and as you're succeeding in different challenges, you're earning free Slim Jims. I mean, who doesn't love to earn some free Slim Jims? But it gets the conversation, it brings the relevancy for the brand back into play, and it really makes a strong connection with the audience of, hey, do what you love to do. We're going to reward you for that. And let's keep having that conversation of keeping that brand really positively involved with the next generation in gaming.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what I love about those is they feel immersive, and they're not about just slapping a banner here or there, right? It's a true experience within the game that feels very natural. And as you say, it feels credible to the gamer playing it.
I will say, just on that note, a lot of brands come to us and they say, oh, Like I wanted to build in Fortnite Creative or Roblox. And I was
Mm.
told it takes 37 weeks to do that, right? Just hypothetical, right? Like, it takes a long time to build custom. I don't have that kind of time. I'm a movie studio. I have a movie coming out in 5 weeks. Like, how do
Yeah.
I do this stuff? What's great about what Overwolf can do is that we can take a lot of standardized assets and flip them into these experiences quickly and effectively, but still feel customized. And most brands that come to us are saying, hey, I want to feel custom. I do not have the lead time for these super engaged, super detailed programs and opportunities. How can I do something that feels custom, but I could turn around in 3 to 4 weeks? And that's where we've had a lot of success working with brands to be able to give them that solution at scale.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's clearly going to, or in my opinion, is going to help optimize people's time, and it would be crazy to be on a podcast in 2025 and not talk about it, and that is AI, which is transforming every industry, and gaming is no obvious exception to it. How is Overwolf using AI today to kind of refine the offerings and to work with brands and the creator community?
Yeah, listen, it is a fascinating area. I think there's a lot of great opportunity that exists within that. If you look at a lot of the machine learning that we see in a number of our apps, we're seeing more and more ways for AI to play a pivotal role in helping to provide value back within these apps and solutions. I'll give you an example of one of my favorite apps called Outplayed. And Outplayed records your video, the entire game session, and then it actually uses that AI machine learning to give you snackable pieces of content that you can instantly post to social or send to your friends, right? So if you and I are playing and I have this amazing dunk on you in the middle of the game and I want to remind you of that every single day, I can, it'll tell me, hey, this was a great moment. Do you want to share that?
Yeah.
I want to share that.
Yeah.
But it's able to, again, thinking about that, like, as a user, before you would have to go back into Outplayed and you would have to basically go through and go, okay, well, when was that moment? Oh, okay, scroll, 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 scroll. Because again, we've established that gaming sessions have not gotten shorter. If
Yeah.
anything, they've gotten significantly longer. And so I have to wade through 45 minutes of a League of Legends match to find that 6 second video that I want to try. No, I can't do that. I don't have time for that. Outplay can do that for you. It can provide you with that moment. Right click, right, send to whatever channels I want, post on the internet, let everybody know I dumpstered on them. Amazing, right? But that to me is where you're seeing really strong value from what AI can do, right? It can go in and actually read and understand and then provide information and feedback to the consumer so that they can just have a better experience. Like just that much easier allows them to get back into their favorite games. It allows them to put out more content. It has a tremendous amount of value impact of making things more efficient, which I think we can all agree that's the goal of AI is to make our
Yeah.
lives more efficient and easier. To me, this is a great example of how it's working on Overwolf right now.
Yeah, I agree. That's an awesome example. And I think that approach, as you say, making things easier, creating that additional content for people to share, I think is such a cool concept. It feels like we are just at the beginning of the in-game advertising journey. Like, I feel like there's still so much potential for us to unlock. Where do you see in-game advertising heading in the next, 5 years? I mean, we'll be on PlayStation 6 at this point. We'll be on the new Xbox, whatever they call that. Where do you think we'll be in 5 years' time?
Maybe we'll be tired of Grand Theft Auto 6 by then. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe, just
Maybe.
about.
I don't know. I have high expectations for that one. That's going to be good.
100%.
Listen, I think that there's a number of challenges that exist in the world of in-game advertising that is really causing it to stifle a little bit. The biggest one being like when you think about game publishers and what they're able to do in their environments, it's very difficult to justify. If you're talking about a $300 million revenue asset, that sounds pretty good to a lot of us. But if you're a company making $20 billion a year or $7 billion a year, $300 million doesn't sound great, especially if there are issues with that, an ad server can, cause infections and could cause problems. Like there's a lot of things that people don't, I think, appreciate when it comes to in-game advertising because they go, wow, it's just ads. It's just put ads. It's like a website. Just put ads. It's not the same. The live service business is different. The amount of direct consumer monetization that a lot of game publishers have is incredibly high. And they're not yet willing to sacrifice that for advertising. I think EA will be a catalyst. EA is going to be a very interesting partner to see. They have made a bet on this. They are rolling out ads in their games en masse. I think that that will have a really good learning system of how this is going to work or not work from an in-game perspective. But for the advertising industry to be comfortable and excited to move their money away from terrestrial platforms, from digital, even some digital aspects of advertising, to move it into video games, they have to be able to transact the way that they're comfortable doing. And so if you're going to do that, you have to then meet them halfway. And I think that game publishers in general have not been willing to do that. And so it has left a gigantic hole open for partners like Overwolf to say, hey, you're not in the game, but you're right on top. And
Yeah.
that's just as valuable. And you're in a place and a position where you're able to not only have a positive impact on people's gaming experience, but you're also able to help this creator economy monetize at an incredibly high rate. I think that's where you're going to start to see a lot more value. On top of that, over the last 18 months, we've unfortunately seen a lot of game studios having layoffs, 20, 30%. And that has made them fixated on only working on the ability to keep games live. New content has become very difficult to produce, very expensive, but it's the lifeblood of what we're seeing. And so I think if you look at our examples with Hasbro and ARC in the Power Ranger situation, you look at our new announcement around our partnership with Avalanche Studios and Hogwarts Legacy, there are a number of big partnerships that we're rolling out where Overwolf is going to be the third party that helps to bring mods and unique customization opportunities to game studios, and then allow them to just keep the games going and focused and happy, but create more revenue opportunities for them and their experience, which I think is going to help to lift up and provide much more value to the gaming industry overall. And I think that when you look at those two angles, to me, if EA is successful, if Roblox are successful and they build with advertising in mind, then they'll be the case study for what game publishers need to do. If not, then Overwolf becomes the de facto, hey, I don't want to mess with my game per se, but I love these other ways in which we can allow advertising, and we can rev share, we can create value for not only for our business, but the creator community that exists around our game. That feels like a win-win-win. And so I think that, to me, if I'm prognosticating 5 years from now, I think that more and more game publishers are going to be excited about how they can compete with Roblox by being able to have an Overwolf mod ad solution that allows us to be able to not only put a mod in one particular game, but perhaps put mods in a dozen or 24 games, which I think will give advertisers the scale and enthusiasm that they need to maximize the value of investing in those types of communities and experiences.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's so much excitement ahead. I do genuinely believe we're just scratching the surface. I think it is going to only continue to grow. You're seeing more and more agencies have the big holdcos having dedicated individuals, teams within those agencies that are focused on the gaming opportunity. And I think that's very telling. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. And I really appreciate kind of all your insight into it. It's an area and a space, as I said, which I'm so excited about, super intrigued by. So to be able to pick your brains has been super helpful for me, and I think definitely for the audience. And obviously this podcast is all about individuals like you who are pioneering new ways to use data and to build those advertising experiences that resonate with consumers, gamers, players. So when you look to people you admire in the industry, who would you nominate for me to interview on an upcoming episode?
Man, it's interesting. There's a lot of folks out there that do incredible stuff across the board. I'm biased in a lot of my situations, as everyone is, but for me, one of the folks that I worked with a long time at Twitch and Amazon, who I thought was just really always at the forefront and really just out there and really inspiring, is Allison McDuffie. And Allison is the head of insights at Roblox. She is an incredibly intelligent individual. She really understands data. She understands the balance of data, the rationale behind using it. And I think that, coming from Twitch and, going to Roblox, like, she has really put herself in a place where she understands the needs for information to help brands make educated decisions, but also to help protect the sanctity of the platforms that brands are going on to. And so I've always just been incredibly inspired by the work that she does. Her calm and ease and straightforwardness of consuming data and having them, kind of passed out in smart and in intellectual ways, and just as a teammate, just someone you can always trust on to do incredible things. So big shout out to her. She is someone that I think is definitely at the forefront of gaming advertising, and super jealous that the folks at Roblox have her as part of their squad.
I love that. We will definitely reach out to her and try and get on the podcast. That does sound like it'd be an incredible conversation. Nathan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. As I say, thank you so much for providing so much insight, not only into what Overwolf is doing, but just into the gaming space. I think it's an incredibly interesting space. I think it's only going to grow. It's only going to get more exciting. So I appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing with us today. Thanks again to Nathan for being on the podcast. In-game advertising remains one of the most exciting media opportunities to me, and so it's great to learn more about how Overwolf is supporting both brands and, importantly, content creators. All that's left for me to do is to remind you to hit that subscribe button to know when the next episode of Identity Architects lands. But until then, thanks for listening.